Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Lowe.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this Monday morning, first day of VMworld? All right. Hey, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us this morning in this session. And we're really excited to talk to you this morning about what VMware is doing in the OpenStack space. So I'm going to be spending a few minutes setting the stage for you. And then Dan Wendlandt will join us up on stage, or actually take over from me here on stage in just a few minutes. So let's dive right in. Because we are talking about products that have not been officially released yet, we'll be talking about the VMware Integrated OpenStack product, which you heard announced this morning in the keynote. Who was in the keynote? All right, awesome, very good. So you've heard about that already. So we have to throw up the usual disclaimer that there may be, features that are under development, and what we talk about, is not necessarily a promise of what will actually be developed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way. So as you know, for the last couple of years, VMware has been driving very heavily on this message of the software-defined data center. And the software-defined data center is really about making it easier, faster, cheaper for all of you to achieve your IT outcomes. Like, we don't, as practitioners, all of you guys out there, myself, before I came to work for VMware and was working for partners and customer settings, we didn't just implement technology for the sake of implementing technology. We implemented technology to get something done, right? So we were shooting for an outcome. And so, some of the outcomes that we often hear our customers talking about when they're looking at using the software-defined data center, you see them listed here on screen, reducing your capital expenditures, reducing your operational expenditures, improving security for your environment, improving the availability of the applications that you serve from your data center, maybe increasing the time to, or decreasing the time to market, increasing the speed and the agility at which you can deliver applications. These are all the IT outcomes that VMware is driving towards with the vision of the software-defined data center. Now, the software-defined data center, as you know, it's a big vision. We've been pushing forward on it, delivering on multiple fronts with lots of announcements. We did announcements last year around NSX, announcements around vSAN. You saw more announcements this morning from Pat regarding, a beta version of another version of vSphere, beta of another version of vSAN, new release of the vCloud suite with improved fit and finish among the suite components. But it's not just a platform for serving up traditional applications. Now, that's where we have been successful. That's where hopefully all of you have been successful in using VMware's products to build this platform for delivering traditional applications, by providing an infrastructure, a virtualized infrastructure that gives you resilience and security, helps you provide appropriate SLAs for the applications, doing that over any underlying hardware. And again, it's leveraging technologies like vSphere, NSX, and virtual SAN. But as we all know, the world is changing. New applications are coming on the scene. New ways of providing workloads are coming on the scene. And the software-defined data center is also a platform for these modern applications that are being developed and deployed today. So it's about new frameworks and new ways of building applications, whether it's frameworks like Spring for developing Java applications, big data frameworks like Hadoop, platform as a service solutions like Cloud Foundry, OpenStack as a infrastructure as a service framework for providing APIs for consuming virtualized infrastructure. This is a very popular way, getting a lot of attention for people building these next-gen or so-called third platform applications. And the same goes for the fast-moving world of containers with stuff like Docker and Kubernetes. And you heard Pat talk about partnerships being formed between VMware and Google and Pivotal and Docker to help address this growing and shifting emphasis on how we build and deliver next-gen applications. And the SDDC is going to be the unified platform for providing services for both these traditional applications as well as the next-gen or modern applications. And there are really sort of three ways that we really want to focus on as we do this. And one is around contributing to open source projects. We see, you can look on this screen and you can see there's lots of open source under the modern apps side, right? And so we want to make sure that we are being a good steward in the open source world, that we're contributing to open source projects, not just where it directly benefits us, but where it benefits the community as well, okay? But being able also to differentiate with the value that we offer in the SDDC vision in these environments, as well as enabling customers to easily adopt them. So let's talk a little bit about OpenStack specifically, right? And where we see it fitting in this SDDC vision and why we feel it's important. For those of you that aren't familiar with OpenStack, I know a lot of you have probably been playing with OpenStack. For example, let's do a quick survey. How many of you guys are out there, so let's say, kicking the tires with OpenStack in some form or fashion, right? That's right, a good number of you guys are. And so you might be saying, yeah, I played around a little with OpenStack. What exactly is this? What is this intended to do? What is OpenStack, right? OpenStack is a framework. It's a set of tools that provide developers and application consumers with cloud-style APIs and tools that sit on top of and orchestrate the consumption of your choice of virtual infrastructure technology. So you've got your application teams, your DevOps teams, and they want access to virtualized compute, network, and storage. They need access to resources to run their applications. But how do they get there, right? Well, OpenStack gives them a set of developer-friendly APIs that they can use to consume these resources. So by using OpenStack, we can take those virtualized resources, roll them up into an infrastructure as a service cloud. The developers and your application owners, your DevOps teams, they have scripts and tools. These might be, sort of configuration management tools. They might be Python scripts they've written. These might be, heck, somebody might be making curl calls directly against the API if they want, right? But they've got methods and mechanisms whereby they want to consume these resources, and OpenStack gives them the API calls to do that. API calls to consume or provision infrastructure. API calls to scale up or down as the application needs. So as applications grow, they need to be able to scale up those resources, or if needed, scale them back down again. And API calls to update code, to update the applications. Now, a lot of questions, at least I know that I see, are, well, okay, so that's great, that's what OpenStack is, but what kind of workloads should I run on OpenStack? Where is what is the sweet spot for OpenStack, right? And OpenStack is primarily targeted at those modern next-gen workloads, right? These are new workloads. Maybe they're workloads that you're repatriating or bringing back in from a public cloud. We've had a number of customers who look at using OpenStack as a way to bring workloads back in from a public cloud like AWS or GCE, because in reality, it's actually cheaper for them to run those workloads in-house on OpenStack rather than in the public cloud. But examples of applications that you would see fall into this category include your scale-out, software as a service type applications, web applications that are stateless, where you might have multi-tier applications, a number of web servers against an app server, against backend database, something of that nature. Dev test environments, continuous integration, continuous deployments, CI/CD, if you're familiar with that. Okay. We also see people putting research and analytics, batch data processing workloads on OpenStack clouds. These are all examples of these modern applications that were built to run on a set of APIs like OpenStack. So what does it take to run an OpenStack cloud? Now this diagram shows you where the OpenStack framework, which is a set of projects, and Dan is going to provide a little more detail around some of the specifics around the projects, but it's a set of projects that provide these modern RESTful APIs that you guys can use, or your application developers can use, to consume virtualized infrastructure. You can see where the OpenStack framework fits in here. It's the API layer that provides this very modern set of APIs for you to use. You still have to provide infrastructure underneath it, right? You still have to provide compute infrastructure. You still need to provide storage infrastructure. You still need to provide networking infrastructure. And OpenStack is flexible, and it gives you the choice of what you want to run there. And we get questions like, well, okay, is OpenStack going to replace all my VMware stuff? And the answer is no. And the reason the answer is no is because when you go to fill in these choices, when you go to make these choices and say, what kind of compute am I going to run with OpenStack? Well, you can run vSphere directly with OpenStack. And you can run NSX in OpenStack networking to provide all of your network services. And you can take advantage of all the work and the effort and the certification and validation that VMware's done on the storage front to take advantage of VMware's storage ecosystem, not just vSAN, but also all of the third-party data stores and arrays and protocols that are supported via the VMFS and VMDK set of technologies. all to be consumed up by OpenStack using the same set of developer-friendly, RESTful, modern APIs. And that's a good choice. And Dan's going to go into more detail when he comes up about why we think VMware is the best fit for an enterprise-grade private cloud under OpenStack. But there's more required to run an OpenStack cloud, right? If you're the cloud administrator, you're the cloud infrastructure team, you need a set of tools to manage that infrastructure, a set of tools to look at the hypervisors and to look at your storage and to look at your networking and tell you what's going on and help you troubleshoot problems there. And so, there's a set of tools that VMware offers there that'll plug in very nicely into this ecosystem to supplement the functionality that OpenStack already provides. Tools like vCenter Operations Manager, Log Insight, ITBM. You may also want to supplement OpenStack's existing functionality with something that provides an additional level of governance and policy with something like VCAC. All of these are complementary to what OpenStack already provides and add additional value when you're deploying an OpenStack cloud as a private cloud in your organization. So it comes down to the question, why OpenStack on VMware? Okay, we believe in giving customers choice, so choosing OpenStack to give you an open and vendor-neutral ecosystem of APIs and projects that gives developers and application owners the APIs and the tools that they want to use, but combining that with industry-leading, proven technologies that your teams already know how to use, that they already know how to manage, they already know how to consume, they already know how to operate it. The combination of these two technologies, we feel, equals the best enterprise solution for running OpenStack. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn the stage over to Mr. Dan Winland. Let's give Dan a hand.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, thanks. I really appreciate you all being here. This is a really exciting day for us, the OpenStack team at VMware. As you heard at the keynote, our CEO was talking about how we're announcing a new product to make it even easier for you to run OpenStack on VMware. I'm going to go into a bit of the details before calling Scott back up on the stage. Basically, as Scott mentioned, people often ask, well, what is VMware really doing with OpenStack? What's your strategy? What's your philosophy? So I want to take you through three core areas. First, talk about how we contribute to OpenStack. Second, talk about how we differentiate, why we think OpenStack's, VMware is a great way to run OpenStack. And thirdly, what we do to help make it easy for you to have choices in terms of how you want to run OpenStack. So, to get started, I'm actually going to play a quick video that has some folks from the OpenStack Foundation and some members of our OpenStack development engineering team to talk a bit about the OpenStack community process. So if someone could play that video right now, that would be awesome.
OpenStack Foundation is a nonprofit that is just turned 2 years old, and we are focused on coordinating the efforts of our community of developers and companies and users all around the world who help to really drive innovation in the cloud. VMware has been an innovator in virtualization and this kind of next wave of infrastructure management for well over a decade. And they've been able to spot trends early a number of times. They have helped to drive OpenStack. Specifically, the Stack networking project, which is codenamed Neutron, was started by some engineers from a company at Nicira. VMware acquired Nicira, and those engineers have continued to contribute heavily to OpenStack networking and push it forward. And many of our most successful users are still making use of that technology.
But I think it's equally important when you see the resources they're putting into it that are really bringing the smartest people in the industry in their area of expertise in the compute realm around hypervisors.
We have more than 30 engineers dedicated to the OpenStack effort at VMware across 7 core projects who are deeply engaged. As a matter of fact, we have been ranked the #4 contributor in the latest Icehouse release in OpenStack.
VMware was one of the first gold members of the OpenStack Foundation. Before that, they had team members that were contributing to multiple OpenStack projects. They've been involved for years and have shown their commitment through their sponsorship of the foundation, through their code contributions, through their community involvement.
I'm a core contributor to OpenStack, so what that means is I help review a lot of the code that's coming in and help form a direction for which area we want to take the project.
At the end of the day, the companies make the investments, but their investments are really in the people. It's in hiring developers, it's hiring developers who are willing to contribute, it's in helping users be successful with OpenStack. And so those are all the things that we look for in, in the companies that are backing OpenStack. And that's just really critical to see. And it's really about looking at the bigger picture, looking at the industry, driving cloud adoption forward. And that's the thing that VMware is helping to contribute to, and so we're very grateful for that.
Right, and we're actually, so I really want to thank the OpenStack Foundation for their role in making sure that the community is very, very open and a space where different companies, including VMware, can contribute and make sure they're providing value to our customers. So I want to quickly introduce some folks from the OpenStack Foundation. So if you can just kind of wave your hand. They'll be up here if you want to come up afterward, ask them any questions. And I'm guessing you guys will also be here the rest of the week. So maybe if you guys want to set up one-on-one meetings or something like that, I'm sure they'd be happy to help with that. So as they mentioned in the video, the core nucleus of the team at the OpenStack team at VMware started out with through this company called Nicira, which is a company I was at and was deeply involved in the OpenStack community as part of that effort. And we've been involved in OpenStack since the beginning because we had done a project called Open vSwitch, which is very widely used as a technology within OpenStack networking. So in 2012, what happened was VMware acquired Nicira and that OpenStack group with them. And so, but at that point, the VMware OpenStack integration was just the networking. But in 2012, VMware decided to join the OpenStack Foundation, and as part of that, they pledged to integrate all VMware technologies with OpenStack, not just the networking components. And so very quickly in 2013, VMware delivered on that pledge. We integrated vSphere into the Nova Compute platform and vSphere storage APIs into the Cinder storage platform. At the same time, we started to work with different members of the OpenStack ecosystem that had OpenStack solutions, people like Canonical and Mirantis. Canonical and Mirantis were seeing customers within the enterprise, right, who were interested in OpenStack, and they wanted to make sure that their commercial OpenStack solutions worked well with VMware technologies, like vSphere and NSX. Fast forwarding to 2014, we're even further expanding our engagement in the OpenStack project. We've upstreamed code into additional projects like Glance and Ceilometer. We've even started new initiatives within OpenStack, like the Congress project, which is looking to become the policy project within OpenStack to help IT administrators specify security and compliance policies within OpenStack. And of course, we're continuing to expand the set of partnerships. And just today, we added HP as a new partner where we're making sure HP Helion OpenStack works well with vSphere and NSX technologies. And as you heard today, we've announced VMware Integrated OpenStack, which is yet another way that our customers can benefit from OpenStack. So again, VMware's contributions from that small nucleus in 2012 has really grown. We've grown both in terms of our involvement in the community and in the ecosystem, and we're definitely looking forward to growing this even more in the future. Some quick numbers to know that I'm not just hand-waving here. These are the involvement that we had in the what I call the core integrated products within OpenStack in the latest Icehouse release. We were a major contributor, I think, to the project. And remember, it's not just about code commits, but it's also about doing things like reviewing code, making sure that the overall quality of the OpenStack project stays high. So, I'm very proud of what our team has done within OpenStack, and I'm looking forward to seeing even greater results from them in the future. Next up, I want to talk a bit about differentiation. Why is it that we think VMware is a great platform for running OpenStack? So, going back to what Scott talked about, which is that OpenStacks, can deliver APIs and tools to your developers to give them the interfaces they want to interact with the infrastructure. But you as a cloud infrastructure architect or administrator need to make decisions about what to run underneath. And there's actually a whole ton of questions you need to think about. What are the capabilities that my cloud application developers need? Right, of course, they need to be able to create a VM, right? But they need to be able to specify load balancing policies. So they need to make sure that that VM is protected in terms of its availability. What about the data from that VM? Right, you need to think about what are the services your application developers need. How am I going to troubleshoot the environment? What's the scalability of the underlying environment? What's the total cost of ownership of the platform? All of these are things that are going to vary based on your underlying technology choices within OpenStack. So this is the conversation we like to have with customers. So of course, when you're thinking about differentiation, the first thing you're going to think about are VMware's core compute, network, and storage components. This is the discussion I love having with customers. Probably the first question I always get is, if I'm using OpenStack and VMware, do I still get things like vMotion, HA, DRS? And the answer is yes, right? Because that's our goal, right? Everything we do about integrating VMware technologies into OpenStack is to make sure we marry those open, standard, vendor-neutral APIs with all of the capabilities you know and love within vSphere, right? So it's about being able to provide those same benefits, but via those standard OpenStack APIs. So you are all pretty familiar with vSphere, so I won't spend a lot of time diving into those details. Networking is a big area. NSX that you've probably heard about at last VMworld and hear about again at this VMworld. Really incredibly interesting functionality there. The ability to let you dynamically create isolated networks and routers and even load balancers, right, on demand via API requests, just like you would create a VM. So it's really game-changing functionality in terms of people who want to provide rich, full 3-tier application topologies to their end customers. And you heard from MIT earlier today in the keynote, but a favorite quote from Gary there is, I don't know if it's exact language, but it's something to the tune of, you'd be crazy to run OpenStack without NSX because of the incredible power it gives you over not only to create VMs, but also to really have rich dynamic networking capabilities to your application developers. And of course, if you use a technology like NSX, it's not just about what VMware delivers, it's what our broader ecosystem delivers. So if you're out in the expo floor, you'll see lots of different vendors with an NSX partner logo on, and they'll be demonstrating different technologies, load balancers, hardware switches, firewalls, all of that plugs into the NSX platform. And we're very committed to making sure that all of that value is value that's exposed via standard OpenStack APIs. Finally, last but not least, the storage. Right? The really cool thing about the vSphere integration with OpenStack is that whatever storage you already have today and that works with vSphere automatically works with OpenStack and vSphere. So whether it's VMFS, whether it's NFS, whether it's vSAN, any of that storage comes along and lets you really hit the ground running in terms of your OpenStack deployment. Additionally, advanced capabilities, things like VAAI array acceleration, all of that work in testing and validation we've done, all of that comes along. Storage policies, et cetera, lets you really easily create multiple tiers of storage, really high performance disks for your databases, cheaper disks for backups, et cetera. All of that, all those capabilities that you already know and love, right? Very easy to use within OpenStack, as well as VMware's virtual SAN technology, which lets you pool kind of local disks and flash in your hard drive. So again, everything you hear about at VMworld, all the cool stuff VMware is doing, our goal is to make sure that all of that's available within OpenStack. So here's one concrete data point that I think is cool. So we worked with a third party called Principled Technologies to do kind of a bake-off between VMware vSphere and vSAN versus an equivalent Red Hat platform, both using commodity storage. And we ran some both micro benchmarks but also macro benchmarks. And we used a Cassandra benchmark because, again, we tend to see people running more modern, next-generation workloads on OpenStack, and Cassandra is often a key component of that. So what we found was that not only on the micro benchmark, but even on the macro benchmark, there were substantial performance wins in terms of running with vSAN. This is because vSAN is able to co-locate directly on the hypervisor rather than using dedicated storage servers. And so what that meant was that the VMware environment was substantially faster in terms of not only raw IOPS, where it was way faster, but even the number of Cassandra transactions you could do. But also, because the VMware, the vSAN environment doesn't require dedicated storage servers and lets you use the actual disks within the hypervisor, we're actually able to reach a combined software and hardware cost that was even lower than the Red Hat solution. So the key takeaway here, again, this is just a concrete example of how the technologies you choose underneath OpenStack really can and do make a substantial difference. The other big area where we like to talk about where our customers see value with OpenStack is that they're able to leverage all of their existing expertise and tools. And so chances are, if you're here at VMworld, you're at a company that already knows how to leverage VMware in production grade, right? Your security folks understand it. You've done all the performance testing and tuning, right? You've locked it down. You've tested it at scale, right? And you can immediately leverage all of that capability to deliver production-grade OpenStack to your developers very quickly. Plus, you're able to leverage all of your experience in terms of troubleshooting, third-party tools that you've integrated to manage those environments, et cetera. So again, for us, this is a lot about letting our customers succeed with OpenStack very quickly. Finally, on to the part that excites me the most, which is enabling our customers, letting more people use OpenStack. So, if any of you have worked with OpenStack or are familiar with some of the very early adopter deployments, maybe you saw a blog article here. This was from a cloud architect at eBay who talked about, OpenStack is a great core nucleus of a cloud offering. But in order to manage that effectively, to get everything you need to actually run a private cloud, you need to add a whole bunch of additional stuff. And at the end of the day, you're either going to build up an internal team to provide support for the environment, write new management tools, et cetera, and that's going to consume a lot of time and money, right? Or you're going to hire some folks in from a DevOps side, right, who have these Linux, these Python, these OpenStack skills. Right? And so these are some numbers from a company called Enavance who published some numbers about the number of different people you typically have to hire to run an OpenStack environment of about, I think the numbers here were about 500 VMs over the course of 3 years. And so the point is that you can choose to consume OpenStack in this way by hiring a team, but you're going to have to spend money in terms of headcount and all of that. And so what we're trying to do here at VMware is enable another direction, right, which is to let you leverage your existing capabilities, your existing expertise, your existing tools to quickly get to a production-grade OpenStack environment. And that's what VMware Integrated OpenStack is all about. Our goal is to make it the fastest and most reliable route for an enterprise to get to a production-grade OpenStack environment. Of course, OpenStack is a very flexible thing, so we've had to make some choices. But every time when we faced a choice, right, we've been erring on the side of making it simple and straightforward to get to a production-grade OpenStack environment. So what does this mean in practice? Well, first off, obviously, you start with an existing vSphere environment. You can add VMware Integrated OpenStack, which is the beta we announced today. This is a combination of the open source OpenStack code with drivers to talk to VMware platforms, right, combined with a reference architecture that we've tested and validated, and tools to facilitate installs and upgrades, et cetera. Right. You can then add in, our VMware's portfolio of cloud management technologies. And what we've been doing here is investing significantly in making sure that all of these technologies are what I call OpenStack aware, which is to say that, for example, we take VC Operations Manager, which already provides capacity planning and troubleshooting capabilities. We've extended those troubleshooting capabilities to be OpenStack aware. So for example, I could search on a OpenStack server UUID, put it in VC Ops, it will pop up, automatically map that to what VMware vSphere VM is associated with it underneath the covers, map that to the hypervisor, the data store, and tell me the health of all of that. So again, it's about extending the value of these tools, making sure they help you run a great OpenStack cloud. Same thing across Log Insight, right, which is a log management and analysis tool. VCAC, IT Business Management, that provides chargeback and showback. So I believe on Wednesday we'll have a full demo that shows basically the entire session's a demo, right, showing all these technologies working together. And finally, and this is something a lot of our customers have been asking for, right, is that we wrap all of this up, we test it, and we provide and we stand behind it with a single contact for support. So that means no matter if the problems, you run into a problem booting an instance. Do you know if it's a problem in OpenStack, in your hypervisor, or in the storage backend that's backing that instance? It's actually really hard to know at first, right? All you know is your VM didn't come up. So what VMware is saying here is that we will stand behind this as a single support contact to help you troubleshoot and solve these problems. So to kind of wrap it all up, we think we have a pretty compelling story here, and I hope you're at least half as excited as I am about it, because I'm really excited. All right, you take VMware's best-of-breed technologies, you combine it with your existing VMware expertise, you add in some cloud management tools to help you manage and run that environment efficiently, and VMware stands behind it all in terms of services and support. And what you end up getting is the ability to build an extremely powerful and rich OpenStack cloud with a lot of features and capabilities for your application developer teams. You're able to get there extremely fast because you're leveraging your existing experience and you're standing on a rock-solid foundation. And finally, we're able to give you the management tools to do this efficiently and let you hit a low total cost of ownership. So before I hand back to Scott, I want to talk about two questions that I often get, which is first, okay, great, sounds exciting, seems like a really easy way for me to get started with OpenStack. What about support for other hypervisor platforms, other storage solutions that maybe aren't already part of a supported VMware product? I think this is a good discussion to have, and I always start out by actually stepping back one direction and talking more generally about the solution space of OpenStack solutions out there today, entirely independent of what VMware is doing. Typically, you'll see there's one of two models that people take in terms of how they look at OpenStack. One is to view OpenStack as a loosely integrated framework, right, where I can take OpenStack, I have a set of people who support OpenStack, and then I'm going to plug different technologies into OpenStack. Right? OpenStack has drivers that support all kinds of different technologies. So it enables you to build a very heterogeneous solution. Right? There's tons of flexibility here. Right? I can give my developers those same APIs. Right? But really, the trade-off comes in terms of what you as a cloud operator or cloud architect need to deal with. Right? You have incredible flexibility on one end, right? You could even, in the extreme, take the open source code, make your own customizations, right? Choose whatever technologies you want, home built or external, and plug them into OpenStack. And you end up with a solution that is very flexible, right? But you often don't have a lot of the rich management tools that give you a cohesive view across that entire plane, right? And you have dealing with multiple support contacts. On the other side, right, you can give up a lot of that flexibility, and but then you can get a much more simplified, much more solution that gives you those kind of rich and unified management tools, right? And there's no right or wrong here, right? There's no absolute right or wrong here. It's about what you as a customer want to optimize for, right? What am I prioritizing for in terms of my adoption of OpenStack? What's my ideal consumption model? OpenStack as an open source framework gives you lots of options on this entire spectrum between loosely coupled and tightly coupled. And actually, VMware has actually already had all of these partnerships in place, right? And our contributions to the open source community that have let you consume OpenStack via a loosely coupled model for well over a year now. And we have customers who are successfully doing this today. What the drive for VMware integrated OpenStack was not to say, oh, all those other solutions are terrible, you should never use them, right? It's because our customers were really asking us for a simpler model, right? They were asking for VMware to stand behind OpenStack and support. So now what I'm really excited about is we really have that full spectrum of solutions covered. And we can give our customers the choices they want. And regardless of which end of the spectrum you end up on, your developers are getting those same standard OpenStack APIs. And that's actually really important because that means, right, if I have developers who start working against a VMware integrated OpenStack solution and they later decide to switch to another cloud that also supports OpenStack APIs, you've got a great story there in terms of the ability for them to non-disruptively move their workloads to a public cloud or another internal cloud. And that ability, that focus on making sure that everything VMware does supports those standard OpenStack APIs also lets us have, in the future, a very compelling story about how we can work with our ecosystem partners to make sure you have a lot of options in terms of what you want to plug into VMware Integrated OpenStack. Obviously, you're always operating on this spectrum. The more different things you plug in, the less you have the value of the tightly integrated. But what we want people to know is that they can start out on VMware Integrated OpenStack and know they have flexibility and options moving forward. The other common question I get is, okay, cool, sounds great. Where are you going with this longer term? What can I expect to see in future versions? So first off, obviously, the OpenStack community continues to churn out new releases every 6 months, right? New APIs come into existing projects. New projects go from incubated to core, right? And VMware is very committed to making sure that our distribution continues to track the upstream releases, continues to pull in the portions of OpenStack that are seen as kind of the standard tools that developers need. Of course, VMware continues to innovate within its own product lines, right? New releases, you heard about the new betas for vSphere 6 and Virtual SAN, right? New product lines like Evo, right? That us working with our partners to even simplify, right? Everything VMware is doing, right? All that innovation, we're going to make sure feeds into VMware Integrated OpenStack, so that if you choose to use OpenStack APIs, you're not making any sacrifices in terms of the value you get from VMware. And finally, of course, our partners, right? I already mentioned them earlier, but I can't say it enough, right? We're very committed to making sure that our partners bring all the value they get, all the work they do to integrate with VMware, right, is value that you can realize. And if you can realize that in a standard VMware, as part of the core VMware virtualization technologies, we want to make sure you can realize that as part of OpenStack with VMware. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it back over to Scott, who's going to talk a bit more about customer use stories and OpenStack and VMware in the real world.
Great. Thanks, Dan. So what do you guys think so far? Good stuff? All right. So if you were in the keynote, you saw Gary from MIT come out and talk with Carl Eschenbach a little bit about what MIT is doing with OpenStack. If we have a session later on, and I have a list of OpenStack-related sessions that I'll share with you right towards the end of this session, we'll have a member from TradeStation who will come up and talk about their deployment. I think it's important to understand that these guys aren't running the VMware Integrated OpenStack beta. These were customers that we worked with very closely in developing the reference architecture that became VMware Integrated OpenStack. But they are leveraging OpenStack on top of VMware technologies and being very successful doing so. Now, what I'd like to do for the next little bit, actually, is kind of take a different look at how customers are using OpenStack and kind of give you sort of a behind-the-scenes peek of what's going on and what went on when MIT deployed their OpenStack infrastructure. And to do that, I'm going to invite another guest onto the stage, and I'd like to invite James Zabala to join me on stage. Let's give him a hand.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
so, James, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is James Zabala. I am an architect in the Network and Security Business Unit. As Dan mentioned, we have a lot of history with OpenStack internally, and so me particularly, I help customers architect large OpenStack clouds and dabble in some development work as well.
Awesome. Great, great. So, James, I think you were involved in the MIT project, is that right?
That's correct.
You were helping them architect things?
Yep, and then deploy it as well.
All right, all right. Why don't you just, like kind of behind the scenes from the architect's point of view, tell us a little bit about, what was driving MIT to deploy OpenStack. I mean, as you were in there with meetings, what were they sharing with you as why they were looking at this?
Sure. So MIT had actually dabbled in some other infrastructure as a service platforms that kind of fell flat on their face. It just didn't meet the bar. They didn't like the administration part. The customers didn't like, sort of the front end of that system. And MIT obviously has a rich history of successfully deploying open source projects, as Gary mentioned this morning during the keynote. So OpenStack was something that they had sort of been looking at and been curious about and thought about deploying, but they really didn't have the experience or the chops to do this without hiring some other people to help them out. So we actually demoed our OpenStack internal cloud to them and the benefits of using NSX and vSphere and sort of putting it all together like Dan was talking about. And they just loved it. They just wanted it the next day. So we went on site and we talked to them about what it was that we could do for them, and how NSX gives you network virtualization, which is something that was very valuable to them, and how vSphere, you just continue to manage and run vSphere the way you do today without having to hire people who know other hypervisors. And it got, they were very excited, and so we went on site, and about a day and a half later we had a full-blown software-defined data center with storage, networking, and compute that they could consume on demand.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story. So James, they're consuming vSphere technology. So they've got vSphere.
Correct.
They're running NSX.
Correct.
Right. And then running OpenStack on top of all that, right?
Correct. Yeah. So they have the software-defined storage, where they can consume storage on demand just like you would in a public cloud. Create a volume. The networking piece, like I said, was very big for some of their customers who are doing very complex three-tiered applications, and they needed just an obscene level of orchestration that OpenStack could easily provide. And then the compute portion, like you said. Yeah.
Right. Now, what were some of the drivers that kind of led MIT? You were saying that they were kind of tipping their toes in various infrastructure as a service technologies. I mean, what was pushing them to go that direction, and what were they able to, based on your experience with it, what were they able to realize?
Sure. Well, so they were dipping their toes. They had a customer that was one of their customers. So MIT has their IT department, which is IST, Information Systems and Technology. One of their customers was sort of, trying to nudge their way into an external or third-party cloud, and that's just not an economical thing to do for the long term, especially at the scale that they were using at. So they wanted to realize the benefits of IaaS. They also realized that putting another hypervisor under the hood was just really an expensive proposition, just because they would have to learn something. So the fact that they could use their vSphere team, which was just they're very talented people. It's MIT. Their reputation does precede them, and they live up to it. They could just put the hypervisor exactly where it was, layer an orchestration, OpenStack on top of it, was a win-win for them.
Right. Awesome. That's great. So now I heard you mention just a second ago, James, that one of the things that was instrumental in helping MIT understand the value of running OpenStack with vSphere and other VMware technologies underneath it was an internal cloud.
Sure.
Can you want to tell the audience a little bit about what that was all about? I mean, I
Sure.
think they might be interested in knowing what we're doing there.
Sure. So the Network and Security Business Unit in VMware, we have one of the largest OpenStack production clouds in the world, at least the last time I checked, which was recently. So we have, we peaked around 13,000 instances on an NSX environment. We have we have an average of about 11,000 switch ports, 1,500 routers. The hypervisor count goes anywhere between 300 and 400 hypervisors. So that is, like I said, layered on top of OpenStack or under OpenStack rather, and we scale it out by just using vSAN. So more compute, more resources for RAM, or more storage. We just keep adding hypervisors to these clusters. And so what MIT particularly liked was Log Insight. Dan mentioned the integration with that. We have all these nice dashboards that really give us an overview of the health of our OpenStack environment from top to bottom. So you can see the number of instances that are running, the API response time for NSX, just really cool dashboards that we put some engineering effort into creating. And so what they particularly liked, aside from Log Insight, which they've been looking for sort of a centralized syslog server for quite some time, they did appreciate sort of the scale out model. So not only can you scale out vCenter, or by adding more hypervisors, you're scaling out your storage and your RAM and your CPU, but they also particularly enjoyed the fact that we can scale out OpenStack. Obviously it's just consuming vCenter resources. So
yeah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, James, I think our internal cloud, that the architecture that we developed there to provide a highly available OpenStack architecture is what kind of led into
VIO.
Both what MIT is using as well as the ultimate VIO architecture. Is that right?
Yes. So our cloud goes back to the days of Diablo. For those of you who've used it, we've come a very long way. Some processes and upgrading. So now we're in a much later release. And we've learned some really hard lessons that we have taken and put it into what we're working on now. How to scale OpenStack. I mean, these are things that are not trivial to you don't just throw out a controller, put Nova and Cinder and Glance and all these things on it, and then expect your cloud to scale to tens of thousands of instances. That doesn't happen. So we have a lot of intellectual property that we've sort of gained by making mistakes and then learning how to really properly architect OpenStack, which is a big piece of this, right? I mean, anybody can go online and download the source code, but having that intellectual property, having a partner who knows how to use OpenStack and really use it in a production environment is something that MIT found very valuable.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we do have a few more minutes before we wrap up. And what I'd like to do, we've been talking a lot about VMware Integrated OpenStack. We've hopefully shared with you our enthusiasm for the product that we're announcing in beta. And what I'd like to do right now is actually just show you guys some screenshots from the product. Who would like to see that? Yeah? All right, all right. So if I could get the AV team to go ahead and roll the video, and I will just talk you through some of the things that you'll see here. These are screenshots taken from the beta of VMware Integrated OpenStack. So you can see we're leveraging straight OVA install, so you just put in the information there to install the thing from OVA. It adds a plugin into your vSphere web client. You just click on there to deploy OpenStack. Once you do that, you see a nice, beautiful link right there. It says deploy OpenStack, which takes you through a wizard. Wizard asks you for information about how to communicate with your vCenter server, et cetera, et cetera. Easy, super easy way to deploy compute clusters or add compute clusters for additional capacity. As James mentioned, all the lessons we learned come out in VIO, so this is a highly available, fully redundant architecture. Everything is backed up, dual queues and all that kind of jazz. We've got the standard OpenStack Horizon, OpenStack dashboard here, so your users who are used to consuming that will have no changes there. This shows you the power of network virtualization, being able to create physical topology independent logical networks. Integration between OpenStack and the vSphere web client, so it's easy for you to determine OpenStack instances and what they are represented by inside the vSphere web client for your operators. Integration into vSphere, vCenter Operations Manager, being able to look at capacity and health. And then here you see a screenshot from NSX Manager actually showing you end-to-end network connectivity verification to show that, yes, instances are able to communicate with each other over the configured logical space. Integration into vCenter Log Insight that you heard James mention as well for custom dashboards that show you trending and growth and analysis, and of course giving you log aggregation as well. So very cool stuff, wouldn't you say? All right. So we're going to have some time for Q&A, so if you do have questions, I would invite you to feel free to step out here. Before you leave, because I know everybody's in a hurry to go, I do want to point out a few things, additional sessions that we have. They're listed here. If you would like a really, really deep dive, then SDDC1580 Wednesday at 2. I'll be joining Michael West on stage, and we'll be doing basically the whole session is all demos, right? Again, we want to be sure and thank the OpenStack Foundation for our ability to participate, so thank them. Hands-on lab is available if you want to do that. So I invite you to go to the hands-on lab. If you have questions, feel free to hit us at the OpenStack booth on the show floor or visit our online community. And finally, if you are interested in the beta, or if you have customers of yours who might be interested in the beta, this is the URL to go visit. At this point, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer those. You can be welcome to show up to the microphone and ask those, or just shout from the audience and we'll repeat. Let's go ahead and get Dan opened up.
And James, so. Go ahead?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. And just remember, we've got some folks from the OpenStack Foundation up front if you want to chat with them or ask them any questions as well. So you guys wave again.
Right, let's go ahead. Here they are right here if you want to come say hi. Go ahead and do it. Yep.
Okay. You mentioned that all the mature, sophisticated capabilities that VMware vSphere has, HA, DRS, everything is kind of exposed through OpenStack. Did you have to work to augment the APIs to include those, or how will that work going forward with new features?
That's a really good question. So our goal with OpenStack is to make sure that people can use the standard APIs. So our goal is not simply to take every VMware API and poke it out unchanged through OpenStack, right? That undermines most of the goals of people using OpenStack. So in some cases where we do need to drive full new functionality, we do that in a community-driven way. So for the NSX is a great example of this. You look at our involvement in the networking project, where we basically led a community-driven process for creating new APIs for things like load balancing and routing and networking, right? To make sure that if those APIs exist, those are kind of OpenStack standard APIs that we're using, not VMware-specific APIs. The question around DRS is an interesting one. In the sense of DRS is, our goal, right? Our goal with OpenStack is to give developers interfaces to provision and manage their workloads. It's not necessarily to say that everything you can tweak from vCenter, right, is something you would do via OpenStack instead. So DRS in that case is actually more something that would happen behind the scenes, making sure the infrastructure is being used more efficiently, right? But at the end of the day, the application owners don't want to deal with details of the underlying infrastructure. They basically just say provision these workloads, right? And it's kind of the cloud infrastructure behind it that provides DRS that moves workloads around. Or, for example, it's the cloud infrastructure behind it that provides things like maintenance mode. That means that when there's an upgrade to a hypervisor, the VMs that are on it don't go down.
Yeah. Do we have another question over here? Did you want to ask that question?
I'm going to ask this question. Whoa.
Hey, watch out. All right.
Hey, wake up. I'm going to ask this question at the risk of sounding dumb, but I'm just beginning this journey in OpenStack from the VCAC side. And I came here kind of with my eyes open thinking, maybe I can replace VCAC with OpenStack. But then I see you have a slide where VCAC is layered on top. Would that be for folks that don't have their own self-service portal layered on top of OpenStack for provisioning, or is there deeper value there?
So this is a common question we get as well, so I'm glad you asked. So if you look at everything VMware does from a cloud management perspective, things like VCOps, VCAC, ITBM, the bulk of that functionality is complementary to OpenStack. It lets you troubleshoot, it lets you do cost visibility, it lets you do capacity planning, lets you do automation. And so the vast amount of value within VCAC is in higher level things like policy, governance, application blueprinting. Those are all things you can leverage with OpenStack. Of course, it is possible to build a cloud directly by having VCAC talk directly to vSphere. That certainly is an option. It's a simple option that lets you very easily get to a full stack. But for people who want to take advantage of OpenStack APIs and want that flexibility for using the OpenStack tools, there are additional capabilities within VCAC. In fact, the vast majority of them that are those higher level policy, governance, blueprinting, some of the new DevOps functionality. All of that is at a layer above the infrastructure as a service layer, and so is something that's definitely complementary. In fact, I think VCAC 6.1 even added OpenStack support for OpenStack as an endpoint. So that's something that's already been in the product since either late last year or early this year.
Right. Okay. Great. Go ahead.
This was a very good session. Thank you.
Thanks.
The single support contact, the operating system as well that OpenStack runs on.
Yep.
So there's a slew of Linux engineers there that will support the.
We have commercial arrangements in place. Yes.
Yep. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Red Hat.
Any other questions?
All right. Thanks, folks.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great show.